Today, we are diving into a really simple but incredibly powerful method for seeing all the patterns that are hiding in plain sight. It's called the 3 C's. And trust me, by the end of this, you're going to have a completely new lens for looking at the world around you.
So let me just start by asking you a question. Do people really always say what they mean? Or, maybe more to the point, do they always do what they say they're going to do? Yeah, I think we all kind of know the answer to that one.
There's almost always a gap between what we say and what we actually do. And research shows this time and time again. We tend to over-report the good stuff, like how often we exercise, and we under-report the things we're maybe less proud of, like grabbing that third cookie. This creates a huge problem if you're trying to figure out what's actually going on.
And this gap, right here, between our words and our actions, this is exactly where we need to begin. Because if you only listen to what people are telling you, you're only getting half the story. And honestly, it's probably not even the most important half.
The source for this analysis uses such a great analogy. Think about a good doctor. They don't just listen to the symptoms you list off. They observe you. They're noticing your posture, your tone of voice, your behavior. They're using all these little contextual clues to piece together the full picture. And to really understand the world, we need to learn how to do the exact same thing. So how do we do that? Well, it all starts with learning the art of observing. And this is not some newfangled idea. It's got deep roots in fields like anthropology. It's really about shifting our focus from just hearing what's said to actively seeing what's done.
A really key concept here comes from an anthropologist named Clifford Geertz. He called it thick description. Now, that might sound a little academic, but the idea is simple. It's not about just writing down every single detail. It's about capturing not just the action itself, but the context surrounding it, all the social and cultural layers that actually give that action its meaning.
Think about it this way. A quick blink of an eye could just be an involuntary twitch, right? A totally meaningless muscle spasm. But in the right context, that exact same physical action becomes a wink, a secret signal between friends. Without that context, the meaning is totally lost. That is the power of thick description.
Okay, so that all sounds great in theory, but how do we actually apply it? Well, this brings us to the core of what we're talking about today, a simple, super practical framework called the 3 C's. It's a tool designed to help you capture that thick description in a really structured way.
The first C is context. This is your starting point always. Before you even look at what's happening, you have to set the scene. Who is here? Where are we? When is this all going down? You're basically drawing the frame around the picture you're about to see.
The second C is content. This is everything that happens inside that frame you just drew. What are people actually doing and saying? How are they interacting with each other? Here, you're just recording the specific events and actions as objectively as you possibly can. This is the wink versus twitch part. And finally, we have the third, and honestly, the most crucial, C, concepts. This is where you get to do the analysis. It's where you step back and ask, so what? What patterns am I starting to see? How does this connect back to what I wanted to know in the first place? This is where raw observation really turns into genuine insight. So just to recap real quick, context is the setup, content is the action, and concepts is the big takeaway. It's a simple 3-step process for making sense of the world just by watching. Now let's see how this actually works in a real-world example.
Theory is one thing, but let's see how this tool was actually put to use. The source paper gives this fantastic case study from a research project that was happening in Qatar.
So these researchers, they had a problem. They needed to recruit people for a health study, but their standard recruitment methods, which were developed in the US, just weren't working. They weren't getting enough volunteers. But instead of just guessing why, they decided to stop and observe.
Okay, so let's look at their field notes using our 3 C's framework. First, the context. We've got a research assistant in a busy primary care clinic in Qatar. They're just watching what happens when people are asked to join a study. The scene is set.
Next up, the content. The researcher sees an assistant walk up to a family and use the official approved script. But then they notice something really crucial. The family doesn't respond as individuals. They all kind of look at each other, have a quick, quiet conversation among themselves, and then one person speaks for the whole group and politely says no. And this sequence just kept happening. Approach, hesitation, decline. And this is where the magic happens, in the concepts section. The researcher connects the dots. The script, which was designed for a very individualistic US culture, was completely failing in this more family-oriented context.
The insight wasn't just that people were saying no, it was how they were saying no. And that observation led to a huge new question about needing to adapt their entire approach to the local culture.
So what does all of this mean for you, right? How can you use this simple but incredibly powerful tool to sharpen your own lens on the world?
Well, the reason to observe is pretty simple. It just gets you closer to the truth of a situation. You start to see how context shapes absolutely everything. You uncover the stuff people can't or just won't tell you directly, and you get to replace your assumptions with what's actually real.
And look, this is not some obscure academic technique. If you're a manager trying to figure out your team's workflow or a designer trying to see how people actually use your product, really, if you're anyone who's just trying to better understand people, this tool is for you.
So I'll leave you with this question. The next time you're in a meeting, or you're sitting at a coffee shop, or just watching the world go by, give it a try. Just think to yourself, context, content, and concepts. What patterns are just waiting for you, hiding in plain sight?